This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. This is the space seal that Yi Nantian set up. Qing's words were like thunder, instantly ringing in everyone's ears. Even though Yunxiao already knew about it, he was still shocked, and the look in his eyes grew even more solemn. Apart from a few great demons who only frowned slightly, the rest of the people all had their mouths wide open, not knowing what was going on. Yi Nantian's space seal. Che Shuyao felt that his brain had stopped working. He stammered and his mouth was so wide open that a watermelon could be stuffed in. Fanny felt his breathing become a little rapid, and he said, "Then what does this mean? Could it be that there's a Noah inside?" Chang nodded. "That's right," she said indifferently. "The supreme-grade mystic artifact, Noah's ship, is sealed in here." Although they had already guessed it, it still made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. It was difficult for them to calm down. They only felt the blood flowing faster in their bodies, and they were so excited that they could not control themselves. "You have such a big secret, why are you telling us?" Even Fanny, which had always been steady, became somewhat incoherent, only feeling disbelief. They had spread false news, but they didn't expect it to become true in the end. This made them feel that it was too dramatic and unacceptable. On the contrary, Yunxiao gradually regained his calm after the shock. He had 2 supreme-grade profound-level weapons. Although he did not mind having too many of them, it was not as strong as the others. Qing Zhu looked at him coldly and said, "Now that the barrier is about to activate the laws of Earth, you won't even be able to keep your life, so what are you so excited about?" This immediately made everyone calm down. They could feel the desolated power of the yellow leaves in the sky, as if the world was about to change. Fanny, that was still doubtful at first, after knowing that you sealed Noah's ship, no longer had any doubts about the 4 seasons of the unaging mountain. "What did you mean when you said there was a glimmer of hope?" Everyone perked up their ears to listen, as this was a matter of life and death for everyone. Little Qing raised her head and looked at the giant seal that was flashing in the sky. Her eyes were filled with respect as she said, "Behind this seal is a mysterious space. As long as we can break it together and hide in it, we should be able to escape this disaster." Yunxiao sensed the magnificent power of the array and said with a frown, "If this space was set up by Yi Nantian, its defensive power is even stronger than the 4 seasons ageless mountain. If he has the power to break the seal, we won't have to be afraid of the 4 seasons barrier." "That's right," Qing said, "the seal's power is stronger than the 4 seasons barrier. However, I've discovered a pattern over the past thousands of years. Every day, the seal is at its weakest at the hour of Ein within 24 hours, and there will still be artifact accumulations vibrating out. Ein hour? We can't tell the time within the 4 seasons barrier. God knows how long we have left." Funny frowned. "Based on the time from last time, there's still about 2 hours left," Qing said. He was silent for a moment before he said, "And I'm also relying on the tool accumulation that has been spreading out over the past thousands of years to be able to take form." His eyes were full of respect. Apparently, he was very grateful to Yi Nantian. Everyone's heart trembled, and they fell silent. The unparalleled expert's peerless elegance was worthy of the admiration of every person who pursued the martial Tao tirelessly. Yi Fan's blood was boiling in his body. The people of the Temple of Holy Fire clenched their fists and their bodies trembled. The prestige left behind by their ancestors had intimidated an entire era, but their unfilial descendants had not even made a name for themselves on the continent. Suddenly, a brutal aura came over. The Rat Emperor's huge body gradually appeared on the peak of the mountain. His whole body was filled with monstrous killing intent. He stared at Fanny, and the fierce light in his eyes seemed to have materialized. The Fief Lord's eyes lit up. He looked at the Rat Emperor greedily and licked his lips. The aura on his body spread out faintly, as if he wanted to capture it. "Don't make a move." Qing Zhu's eyes flashed with a stern look as it shouted, "If we interfere with the breaking of the seal, no one will be able to live. If someone wants to make a move now, I'll show him what I'm capable of." Fati's body froze. He naturally didn't care about little Qing's threat, but the 4 seasons of the unaging mountain were indeed a matter of life and death. One more person meant one more hope. As long as he could hide in the space, who would be able to escape from his palm? Thinking of this, he calmed down and stared at the Rat Emperor coldly. He showed a contemptuous and disdainful look towards the killing intent of the Rat Emperor. Qingzhu frowned, but it had to borrow the power of its fief, otherwise it would not be able to break the seal. Rat Emperor, how are the 2 of them? No, the Rat Emperor said. It's still locked in that space and suppressed by the power of the unaging mountain. It can't get out at all. It's a pity, Qing sighed, the chances of success would have been higher if they joined. In that case, we can only let them stay there and wait for them to be annihilated. Everyone's hearts moved. They didn't know what was going on, but they thought that it was probably someone else who had intruded, so they didn't think too much about it. Take a look at these pills and see which ones are useful. Try to recover your strength in the shortest time possible. Qingzhu took out all kinds of bottles and jars, opened them, and threw them to the crowd. A large amount of pill fragrance came out from them. These were no ordinary high-grade pills. Yu's nose suddenly sniffed a few times, revealing a look of surprise. One of the small bottles was actually an 8th-ranked pill. The surging medicinal power shook his qi and blood, and his face was full of joy. Qingzhu couldn't care less. If it couldn't escape this calamity, then no treasure would be of any use. It threw out all the good things it had. Just as he was about to grab the small blue bottle, a figure suddenly moved as fast as lightning and grabbed it before he could. The figure laughed and said, "It's the Tianshui soul restoring pill. Good treasure, I want it." Yu was startled. It was indeed the pill he had guessed. In a great rage, he turned his palm into a claw and grabbed at Li Yunxiao. At the same time, he performed a sword incantation with his left hand, and the tail-light sword shot out beams of cold light, about to cut Li Yunxiao into pieces. The Tianshui soul restoring pill was an 8th-tier divine pill that could nourish soul power. Not only could it replenish soul power at an amazing speed, but it could also replenish it at an extremely fast speed. Alchemists below the 8th tier could almost fully replenish their soul power in an instant. Even for someone of Yu's level, it could recover half of his strength. I technique form displacement transposition. Yunxiao's eyes flickered with spiritual power, and he disappeared from where he was, avoiding the few sword beams. Yu's face was full of anger. Just as he was about to rush forward, he saw a bolt of lightning strike down. He hurriedly turned around and retreated. The lightning exploded at the place where he had been standing just a moment ago, emitting light in all directions. You really took my words for wind. Do you really want to die now? Qingzhu's face was cold. The lightning around its body expanded and it directly turned into lightning. It appeared in the sky above the rain, and the majestic power of lightning made the autumn colors on the mountain peak retreat in all directions. It seemed like it was going to attack all out. He had the most access to the laws of heaven and earth here, so killing Sheng and the others would be a piece of cake. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to consider opening the sealed boundary, he would have killed them long ago. Furthermore, his intention was to deal with Sheng immediately after this. When Fengyi and Che Shuyao saw Qingzhu's lightning power, their faces turned serious. They looked at each other and immediately started searching the bottles. Sheng's expression darkened. This time, we were in the wrong. I promise there won't be a next time. He also knew that it was Yu's impulsiveness. At this moment, even if he could win against little Qing, he had to consider the big picture. After entering the sealed space, they would have the Yang key. Perhaps there would be unexpected changes. They would settle the matter at that time. Yu also realized that he had lost his composure. He gritted his teeth and said coldly, "That's right, I was too impulsive, sorry." But there was no apology in his eyes. Instead, they were filled with cold killing intent as he stared at Yunxiao. Yunxiao checked the pill and found that it was indeed the Tianshui soul restoring pill. He was in a good mood and said with a smile, it's fine. Just don't be so cocky in the future. Otherwise, it's easy to get into trouble." Yu was so angry that he was grinding his teeth. Sheng, on the other hand, was calm as he picked out many things from the bottles and swallowed them. Qingzhou retracted its lightning and stood in the air. It looked at everyone coldly and said, "If anyone else makes a move, kill them all without mercy." He sat cross-legged in the air, closed his eyes, and began to regulate his breathing, waiting for time to pass. After taking the Tianshui soul-restoring pill and snatching a lot of good things, Yunxiao slowly calmed his mind and began to regulate his breathing. Everyone in the Temple of Holy Fire and Tangjia were too excited to calm down. They could only half close their eyes and breathe quietly. Suddenly, a powerful presence flew over from afar and landed on the mountain peak in everyone's shock. After sweeping his gaze over the crowd, he said, "Is everyone here?" "Ngu Duong Yu." The Feng Yi's expression changed, and a faint killing intent appeared on his body. For some reason, he couldn't help but want to kill this person the moment he saw him. If it wasn't for his mischief, his 5-element beast taming ring would have been successfully refined long ago. This person was Ngu Duong Yu. His face was still pale, but he smiled teasingly. However, his smile was a little bitter. "I'm just here to be a bystander, but I've actually fallen into a life and death situation. Why is my life so bitter? How's your recovery going?" Qingzhou opened its eyes. Ngu Duongyu said bitterly, "About 20 to 30%. Also, all of my profound level weapons have been destroyed. I don't have any decent ones. Someone can give me one at the last minute." "I've never used profound level weapons," Qing said indifferently. "If any of you have an extra one, you can give it to him." "Myriad Treasures Store?" Yunxiao gave him a look and said, "He looks a little familiar, but I can't recall who he is." "If you don't mind, I have a few that you don't need." Ngu Duongyu rolled his eyes at him and said, "Trash that even Wuzongs can't use, are you going to give me this kasaya?" His voice suddenly stopped, and his mouth slowly opened in shock. Ngu Duongyu's voice suddenly stopped, and its mouth was wide open, and its eyes were almost popping out. A delicate ancient bell appeared in Yunxiao's hand. It was small and cute, and the artifact aura it exuded shocked him. He immediately recognized that it was a 9th-tier mystic artifact. "This ancient bell is ringing." He was extremely excited and stepped forward to take it. With a flip of his hand, Yunxiao put it back into his body. Rolling his eyes, he said, "What are you doing? Who are you? Do I know you well?" Ngu Duongyu was stunned for a moment before it smiled apologetically and said, "Little brother, I'm the sunfish boat of the Myriad Treasures Store. Where did you get that ancient bell? Show it to me, it might be worth a lot." Everyone's face was black, and they were all drenched in cold sweat. Was Ngu Duongyu really a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens? How could he be so shameless? Yunxiao gave him a sidelong glance and snorted, "It's none of your business whether it's valuable or not. Also, you dare to call Big Brother in front of me? You must be tired of living." His tone was cold, as if he really wanted to take the other's life. Ngu Duongyu was stunned. A martial arts grandmaster said that he was tired of living, which made him unable to react in time. He even suspected that he had heard wrongly. He dug his ears and said, "What did you just say?" Yunxiao took a step forward, pointed his middle finger at the man's nose, and said loudly, "I said you're tired of living, don't you understand? I'll give you a profound level weapon and you can just use it. Do you think you can use a 9th-tier profound level weapon with your trashy cultivation of a 1-star martial emperor?" A light flashed in his hand, and a shining sword stabbed into the ground. It was a rank 7 sword, the one he had found among the remains of the Flying Frost sect. He said coldly, "It's up to you to use it or not." "You're so silly." Ngu Duongyu looked at the 7th-grade sword and was a little confused. It said awkwardly, "You know I'm a martial supreme and you still dare to talk to me like this?" Femi couldn't help but laugh. He was happy to see the sunfish boat being defeated, but his eyes were cold as he said, "This kid's name is Li Yunxiao, and he's always been very strong. When I break the seal and escape this disaster, I'll see why he's so strong." Li Yunxiao. The sunfish boat's expression suddenly changed, and it said in shock, "The city lord of Yanwu, Li Yunxiao? The city lord of Yanwu?" The fiend's eyes also flashed with surprise, the place where the spiritual energy leaked out of Mount Meru? The city of Yanwu that Tianqin Li Huaqi personally guaranteed? The leakage of spiritual energy from Mount Meru, and the simultaneous arrival of Li Huaqi and Yao Jinliang in Yanwu, had caused a sensation all over the world, and the news had long spread across the continent. As soon as Yunxiao's identity was exposed, it immediately aroused the speculations of the crowd, and they all frowned. Big brother Yunxiao. Yi Fan suddenly cried out, his eyes filled with shock as he looked up into the sky. The ceiling formation suddenly became clear, and the light on it began to flash like a rainbow. A vast will was emitted. Sure. It's now. Qing shot up and flew under the ceiling formation. Feeling the vastness of the aura, its eyes were filled with solemnness and confusion. It was precisely this power that was released for 2 hours a day that allowed him to have the opportunity to leave his body and cultivate to his current realm. Nguduong Yu grabbed the 7th grade sword stuck in the ground and flew up. It said seriously, how is it now? Should we start breaking the seal? Let's not delay any further. Let's do it together. Qing Zhu said. With so many people working together, they'll definitely be able to break the seal and enter. Everyone tensed up and took out their own profound weapons to unseal, planning to make their strongest attack. Their life and death all depended on this one move. It's impossible to gather power with such a sky full of attacks. I do have an idea, but I wonder if everyone is willing to try it, Li suddenly spoke. Just tell me what it is, Qing said. We've gathered everyone here to work together to avoid the disaster of the 4 seasons. Everyone's eyes fell on her, and Li's performance had always been admirable. She said, I know of a formation that can absorb a cultivator's energy, fuse it together, and condense it into a physical form. Then, one attack from it will definitely be stronger than everyone's scattered attacks. Fanny was shocked. Are you talking about the formation that can gather energy and transform it? That's a formation that only existed in ancient times and has been lost for a long time. How did you learn it? Although little Qing didn't understand, it felt that it should be very powerful. It said happily, then let's hurry up and set it up. How long will it take? The time it takes to brew a cup of tea will do, Li replied. She opened her hands and golden energy shot out from her 10 fingers, continuously drawing out various formations. Femi was also an array master. His face was full of shock and horror. Although this kind of void array was not a great method, it was able to be so vivid and smooth. Moreover, every talisman was condensed without any delay, and the golden talisman lines were also unobstructed. All of this required a very strong deduction and calculation ability, which was not something that ordinary array masters could do. Yunxiao's eyes were also filled with a pleasant look as he praised. Soon, a small, exquisite golden formation was formed above the group, standing parallel to the huge green seal formation. Qing was aware of the background of Sheng and the others, and knew that they were all extraordinary. Seeing Li's injured state, she said, Do you want to rest for a while? Li shook his head. There's no need. Everyone, just use all your strength. Don't resist the suction of the formation. She took out the elixir that she had just chosen and swallowed it. Then, she slowly circulated her essence force to dissolve it. Do it, we can't wait any longer. Qing said. The sky was filled with the bleakness of autumn. There were no more falling leaves, and snowflakes began to fall from the sky. A terrifying aura of the extinction of all living things spread in everyone's heart, and they were all greatly shocked. Ha! Rise! Fu roared. He clutched the axe tightly in one hand, and his aura rose rapidly. Power gushed out of his body and the profound level weapon, and was constantly absorbed into the golden array. With him taking the lead, everyone began to follow suit. More than 20 powerful auras erupted at this moment, and the power was astonishing. The surrounding law of winter stagnated, isolating the snowflakes and forming a space of energy. The golden formation above them glowed brightly as tangible power continued to pour in. Everyone was shocked at how quickly their power was being drained. In just a few seconds, they had almost run out of energy. At this time, the array began to absorb everyone's power and began to emit an extremely strong light. Gradually, a figure slowly stood up from the surface of the array. He had wide arms, and his whole body was composed of golden light. His eyes were empty. He formed a human figure and slowly flew towards the ceiling array. What a powerful force! Qingju's face was filled with shock and doubt, but it was more of a happy expression. It muttered, "Is this the existence that has gathered everyone's power?" When the golden figure appeared, everyone felt a wave of pressure spreading in the air. The martial emperors' faces turned pale, and they could hardly stand still. They looked at the figure with longing in their eyes and remained motionless. The golden human figure got closer and closer to the ceiling formation. He slowly raised his arm, opened his mouth, and roared. Without making any sound, he punched the symbol in the center of the formation. The fist directly hit the center of the array, and a golden light burst out. The golden figure's expression was very ferocious. Half of his body rushed into the array, trying to tear the entire array apart, and then he went in. This buy-in. As the golden human figure entered the array, it was as if it had been swallowed. Even its powerful aura had completely disappeared. Everyone's eyes were wide open and they were completely stunned. Just as everyone was still in a state of confusion, a golden light suddenly shot out from the center of the ceiling array, forcibly opening the array and revealing a dark passage. That golden light was the last burst of power from the golden figure, seeking a chance of survival for everyone. Let's go. Li was the first to react. She quickly rushed into the black tunnel, followed by Sheng and the other monsters. They disappeared in front of everyone. Only then did everyone return to their senses and rush up, finally entering the passage before it closed. The great ceiling formation seemed to have a certain self-healing ability. It slowly closed up, and the passageway finally disappeared from the pressure. This is. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. In this sealed space, there were fist-sized balls floating in the air. On top of each ball, there were two long rods that extended out, connecting to the other small balls. Just like that, the densely packed rods extended into the distance. All of these small balls emitted a faint light and were constantly spinning, as if there was some kind of subtle connection between them. As soon as they entered this space, everyone felt extremely unnatural, as if they were greatly suppressed. Where's Noah's ship? Isn't there Noah's ship here? Finny shouted. There seemed to be no gravity here, and he could fly at will. His divine sense quickly spread out in all directions. Other than those balls of various sizes connected together, it seemed to extend to an infinite space, and there was nothing else. Yunxiao's eyes were wide open as he looked at the endless little balls. They extended to an infinite distance, and he seemed to feel an inexplicable throbbing, but he could not catch it. Yu's face was also filled with shock. He reached out and wiped his hand on one of the balls, but he was immediately knocked out by a powerful force. He let out a scream and was sent flying. Just as the force rushed out of the small ball, Tang Jie's face suddenly changed, as if he had noticed something. He took out something and held it tightly in his hand, for fear of being discovered. After seeing Yu being sent flying, Li also looked at the balls in shock and asked, "Is this the structure of the universe?"